Welcome to Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I'm your host, Megan, and my amazing co-host is...
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hello. If you're looking for some homeschool friends who don't pretend to have Pinterest perfect lives, stick out like a sore thumb in traditional homeschool crowds, and need an expletive label on their podcast, that's us. We love homeschooling and we love spending our days with our respective kiddos, but we will never show up and pretend that we are perfect.
Yeah, I mean, what's even the point of that? Just so you can leave our podcast feeling like crap and then you can't live up to our phony personas or something? No, we are not about that. Another fun fact about Homeschool Moms Unfiltered, though, is that we are unapologetically progressive. We believe abortion is healthcare. We believe no human being is illegal. We believe trans rights are human rights, and truly so much more. So if you also stick out like a sore thumb in homeschool crowds that shout, Bible verses at the top of their lungs, but then do not, in fact, carry out the very basic principle of loving thy neighbor, we're with you.
Wow, right? I mean, there was no footnote on the love thy neighbor thing. I've checked, I've looked. I'm pretty sure it means love thy brown neighbor, love thy Spanish-speaking neighbor, thy Hindu neighbor, thy gay neighbor, all the neighbors. I was raised on PBS, and Mr. Rogers taught me how to interact with my neighbors, and that's not it.
Good joke. Oh, man. Okay, so today we are talking about life upheaval and how it impacts homeschooling. Now, we're not here to wish bad luck on anyone, but let's be real, life happens. If you haven't experienced a major disruption to your homeschool yet, truly, we are genuinely thrilled for you. Really, truly. But the reality is you should stick around and listen because at some point, the shit is going to hit the fan. And when it does, we want you to know it's okay. You're still an amazing, committed homeschool caregiver, even in the middle of chaos and possibly even crisis. That said, we do like to make sure that we keep our vibe real and make sure you know that we try to have our shit together, but we're imperfect at best. Okay, so we kick off each episode with a weekly recap. So with that in mind, how's your week been, Megan?
More of the same. If you've been listening, Amanda and I keep scheduling times to get together and work on stuff. And I'll look at my calendar out of habit and I'm like, wow, it is shockingly blank. We've been busy. I mean, Amanda and I, we've got some updates later in the podcast that we'll talk to you about. We have been busy. We have been working on a ton of stuff behind the scenes that we're getting ready to push out. So we've been super busy, but my schedule has been flexible. I can work when I work and whatever. And all of that. We're still in Aruba, which is where my husband's from and where my husband works. And so there's not a ton to do. It's like we get up, we do our thing. I go to the grocery store, I work, we go to the beach and go for a nice WALK. If you have a dog, you know why I spelled that, and that's it. So as soon as we're done today, that's my plan. So that's kind of it. Season 2 of the Dallas Cowboys thing came out the other day, the cheerleader thing. I told Amanda I watched that. It's like a train wreck that I can't stop watching. And so the thing that's been on my mind is they showed scenes of these cheerleaders who recently got a 400% raise because of all the hoopla after the first season, because we found out they were being paid like $7 an hour and they were all working like 3 jobs while working this job full time because it was an honor to be on the team and to work there. So they shouldn't need financial compensation. So anyway, went through that. So at the very end of this season, and there were a couple of women on the team who pushed for this raise and really put themselves on the line out there. It was really awesome to see. But you would think all the public backlash since the first season would have done it, but not so much. But then I'm watching these women, they have to take their uniforms. They wear these little white shorts to cheer, which are basically panties, and they have to take them home and they get sweat stains like on the inside of the waistband and stuff like that because they're very athletic. Like they're sweating and it's white. And they're there with one girl's like, oh, this is like my mom's secret stain remover. And she's got a toothbrush and she's rubbing the sweat stains out of her uniform and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, do you think the men who play football for the Dallas Cowboys also have to bring their uniforms home and wash them themselves? Like, I was just like,
stay white. Yeah.
Like such bullshit, right? This is such patriarchal crap. But I watched it. I did it. So anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, this is what I'm doing. I mean, I keep it on in the background while I'm working, and that's it. But yeah, otherwise, status quo. How about your week, Amanda?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a lot of the same. I'm going to be honest, I'm drowning a little. Megan, if you listen to us, you know that Megan has a lot more energy than I do. And so keeping up with her, I'm traveling, I'm visiting my family right now. So in between, trying to make sure that I balance the family time and time with my parents and time with my brother and his family and all of the things that we want to do when we're here and all of the stuff that we've got going on with podcasting. And I had big plans for myself. Most of those have been put on the back burner. I don't know when I'm going to get to those. Maybe the next time Megan has a pop up or something and she's busy, I'll be able to do some of my own projects.
I disappear for a few weeks again.
Like, oh, now is the time that I can write my own smut book. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it and put it out there. But yeah, this is well timed in my world because I often say, we do like a modified version of year round homeschooling and summer we still do stuff. But I couldn't even begin to tell you what my kid has been doing the last couple of weeks on like the regular to the level that I normally know what he's doing because I've not had the freaking time to check in with him. I know that every evening he's built some sort of a tank and he's shooting Nerf bullets at us from inside his cardboard tank. And I'm pretty sure that has something to do with our D-Day unit study. But beyond that, he's got workbooks I really hope he's doing, but I'm kind of doubting it. He's got some kind of an art and poetry thing that I wanted him to work on this summer. Also pretty sure that hasn't been done. I do think he's been doing some of the communism and Cold World stuff I got for him, but again, that's like a real passion thing for him, so there doesn't have to be a reminder to crack that sucker open. So yeah, like I'm just holding on. It's definitely we're reaching the point where I'm feeling like I'm holding on by like my fingertips, but I'm holding on. So yeah, there we are.
Doing it, and we're almost there. We'll tell you more in the episode about what we've got coming out, but we're making great progress. It feels really good. So
We are.
yeah. So and we do have different energy levels, but like I feel like we both give everything that we need to, like, you know what I mean? Like it's grading on a curve, right? It's like when you take me down to sane human level and then I take you up to like not disabled level, we equal each other out quite nicely. It's just chronic fatigue and ADHD couldn't be further at the opposite ends of the spectrum for energy. So it's like with Ev and Amanda's like, oh my God.
Okay. I promise I will review those. I promise I will read those. I'm on it. I got it.
We got that.
I have lots
So-
of caffeine.
Right. Same here. Same here. I'm with you. So, well, today's topic is perfect for you then. When you
Yeah.
like, if you're having a bet, you can listen to it and be like, I am still good at this. I am still valid. I am still doing a good job. My kid's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Today, we are going to be talking about homeschooling through upheaval, as Amanda said. And unfortunately, at some point in your life, things will go off the rails. It's true for all of us. And it's hard for anyone. Life goes off the rails. But when you're the point person for your kiddo's education, it adds an extra layer of complication, to be sure. So when you experience a death in the family, when you suddenly find yourself as a caregiver for a sick relative or an elderly parent, when your relationship ends, your mental health hits a new low point, how does it affect your homeschooling journey? And that's what we'll be talking about.
Well, yeah. And the thing too is not all turmoil or chaos is a hardship, right? Like so many homeschool families welcome new babies. And well, like that's usually a super wonderful thing. Babies certainly do have a way of sending your typical routine into an absolute tailspin for like a while after their arrival. They're not like, yo, I'm super chill and gonna make your life so easy on an hour of sleep at a time.
I'll just maintain myself over here. I'm fine. Don't you worry about me.
Yeah. It's like we just hatched chicks like a month and a half ago. If you followed us, you know that we were doing that. And my kiddo kept being like, why are they so dumb? Like Why do they like fall asleep with their head in the water? And it's true. I mean, it's like they would walk up to their watering dish and then fall asleep and let their head fall in the water. And we knew this was a possibility. So we took precaution. And I was like, I mean, that is kind of dumb, but they can get up and walk themselves to their watering dish and to their food dish. And you certainly did not do that as a baby, not when you were 5 days old, you know? So, like, I mean, I think give them some slack. So,
Like, I'm still keeping you alive, dude, and you're a lot older than 5 days old.
right? Right.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? Anyway, so yeah, I guess, like, let's start with like, have you ever had an experience, Megan, where that like just really rocked your homeschool groove?
I mean, our homeschool groove is life because we're unschoolers. So for us, probably a little bit less so. I will say, like, I'm having a little bit of the same thing right now where we've just been busy, busy, busy. And I've signed my kids up for a couple of different classes. And then one of my sons had a class that was moving a little bit. The teacher was like, okay, well, we normally meet on like Tuesdays at 6, but over the next couple of weeks, I have some stuff. So the class was like bouncing around a little bit. And then my other kiddo takes an ASU college math class over the summer. And last summer, we had it set up where he meets with his math mentor 3 times a week for 30 minutes, just to kind of like figure out how to segment his work. And there's an accountability piece there. He's super neurodivergent. So he's good with the math, but the executive function part is where his mentor kind of swoops in and is like, okay, here's how we're going to actually get this done. Which is wonderful, but his schedule has been a little crazy this summer. And so his like last summer, it was like Monday, Wednesday, Thursday or Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon or something. And this week it's like, how's today at 6? Like constantly. And I'm like, I can't. And we adore him. Liam's been taking class with him for years. So I get it. Like, this is not how he normally functions either. Maybe his life has gone off the rails a little bit. It's not just limited to homeschoolers. But it's been like a lot to juggle. So even right now, I feel like a little off kilter because of all of that. But I think the biggest things have been when we've moved. So we've moved 1, 2, 3, 4 times while homeschooling. And big, like halfway across the country and buy a house, sell a house, stuff in storage, all that kind of stuff. And then this most recent move, we left the US. So that was big as well. And I think those are kind of the biggest ones. But for me, and we'll talk about this more during the episode, like my kids are rock stars at moving. I mean, they know there's a system, there's a process, they know it. Those are life skills. So even though, yeah, maybe I totally screw up and forget to remind somebody that they have a thing and they miss a meeting, they're learning in different ways. So I'm okay with it. But it definitely adds an extra layer of stress when you're the one who's responsible for keeping that whole shit show together during a move, especially because it's not even just the logistics of the move. There's so many emotions, and that would be true for a lot of the other examples that we read off too. So not only are you managing the logistics of the thing, but this kid's upset because they're leaving a friend behind. This kid is upset because they're not sure they're going to be able to find an equivalent Pokemon club in the new place. And this kid is upset because they have a project that's due by such and such a day. And now you've said, hey, guess what? We're moving. And now they have to retime their project. So there's all of this stress and emotion and letting go and all of that in there. That's like, when you're trying to navigate through all of that, which makes it really fun too.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
So how about on your end? You don't move every 2 years. That's so boring in your world.
I mean,
But I'm sure you've got other stuff.
before we started homeschooling, I did. I hardly ever stayed in one place for more than 2 years, even with a kiddo. But right before we started schooling, we bought a condo that was a compromise that my husband and I made. I had never wanted to own property. And so we finally agreed. He really wanted to. And so we agreed to buy a place. But it was with the understanding that he had to be okay with me traveling at least 2 months every year, because I get like really twitchy and itchy about like staying put. And so if he wanted me to put that level of roots down, he had to be okay with this. And then the kiddo's gotten better at traveling. So now we can do part-time world schooling. And a chunk of that is spent with my parents where the costs are really low and points and travel hack and, and all of that stuff. So he's probably looking back at that and going, what happened to the 2 months? Like, you're gone for 4 or 5 months a year. And like, well, you come with us sometimes, like.
I mean, in fairness, you did say at least 2 months out of the year. Like if he didn't read the fine print, that's on him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we were later in life relationship, and so we have a lot of these kinds of compromises. Like, well, I don't want to give up my motorcycle. Okay, well, I don't want to give up world travel. And how we made those work in our relationship. So you're right. There were lots of agreements, and there's lots of fine print. So that's what you get. But for us, we kind of alluded to it earlier in the episode, and anyone who listens to us on the regular, I have a lot of chronic health issues, and I am disabled. So for me, most of it comes down to, unfortunately, fairly frequent health problems. And so it's that thing. Sometimes it's as simple as a chronic illness flare, and I'm just not really able to get out of bed and to stay focused on things. And unfortunately, those usually last at least a month and usually closer to 2 months when I have one of those. And when it's like that, you know, it has happened often enough. It tends to happen at least once a year. And so we have a rhythm for that. We have a way of dealing with that. Sometimes there is, some active health problem happening on top of just the chronic illness flare. And that's harder. If I'm having to go to the ER a lot and, lots of doctor's visits and managing that, there's a lot more that goes into that. It makes my kiddo a lot more anxious and things are just not as settled. It's one thing to have kind of, these health issues that how it goes and it's, and this is how it is. And mom has to homeschool from bed and she's not going to be able to be that active mentor as much versus, dad having to kind of pack everyone up to get mom to the ER for an emergency situation sort of thing is definitely they bring, again, life skills, it definitely changes how that all comes together and how that works. So yeah, I think we'll have some different takes on things and yeah, it's good, right? That's part of why you people listen to us, right? Because we are not the same. We hear that pretty often. Like, wow, you guys are not like, how can you be on two opposite ends?
Somehow we do it.
Yeah. So here we are.
We should have named the podcast like The Odd Couple of Homeschooling or something.
But then people would totally think that we were actually a couple, which is not a huge problem, but we are not. So we would take it to an extreme considering we've only seen each other in person once. It would be like one of those like weird AI relationships or something where never actually real interaction.
Like a hologram.
There you go. Here's the deal. We have both been circulating in the homeschool community for long enough to know that we are not unique. So if you're in this position at any point, please just remember you're not alone. Oftentimes, it feels like the default responses during periods of turmoil are things like, I have to put them back in school. Like their education is going to fail. I can't do it. I can't stay on top of it. Like I'm just going to sign them up for public school and then I can pull them out again later. And it's one of those things, I mean, yeah, you can do that. And there might be a situation where that is the right choice. The flip side is that's another huge transition that you're going to throw on your kids, like a big transition and a big transition for you because your kids are going to be exhausted and they're going to come home and they're going to have meltdowns. They're going to have freakouts and there's going to be all these new things that they have to deal with that then you have to deal with. Like, is that really the right choice? Really take time to think about that.
Well, and I'm thinking too, the amount of homework that most kids bring home from school is the same amount of time as homeschooling. I mean, if your kid brings home a packet, like an elementary school kiddo that takes 30 to 60 minutes, you can homeschool them in the 30 to 60 minutes that they're doing the homework packet. And the reality is they're doing that homework packet in their after school restraint collapse period where they're tired and they're stressed and they're brain fried and whatever else. So it's like, if you could ditch all of that and just do the equivalent of the homeschool packet, you're still homeschooling, right? Congrats.
Yeah, no, totally. And then another one that we see often is this idea of like, I guess we'll just, do some like all in online thing and hope it sticks. And again, this is another one of those things. Like, it's kind of a knee jerk reaction. Like, I'm not giving my kids what they need. I'll sign them up for this thing. I've seen advertisements for it. I'll just do it for this time. Right. But again, like we've talked about it, There are very specific, unique circumstances where an all online thing may be the right answer. But the vast majority of the time, it's not the best answer. And it's huge adjustment. It's a big transition. You have to spend a lot of time for it to actually be effective and right, finding the things that work, the stuff that they don't know, the things that they aren't going to be interested in. Like you're putting more work on your own plate to try to make this thing work. And then, and you're forcing another transition in a time when everyone is already overwhelmed, like really think about going all in on some online program or virtual school sort of thing. We'll talk about it later. We're super pro using online tools here and there to help, especially during a time like this, but we both use them all the time, year round, in our own homeschooling journey. There's nothing wrong with online classes or online resources or online programs. We did a huge review of different ones and we have opinions about those. But going all in and using only an online program during a difficult time is probably not going to be the most successful solution.
Well, and again, rough numbers, right? I'm just going to throw numbers out there, but the retention with a lot of those all in one programs is pretty low. So if you're thinking, well, I'm usually homeschooling at a pretty good, I'm giving it 100%, right? And then you switch your kid to an online program and maybe now their retention is like 25% or 30% because they're in this online thing. Even if you half-assed homeschooling and gave it 50%, you'd still be better than some of the retention levels that come with some of those online programs. So again, you're still doing good.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's the thing. And then depending on what is happening, especially if it's negative chaos that's happening, some kind of a crisis or, the end of a marriage or something like that, it's really easy to just like feel terrible about yourself and just be like, well, that's it. I suck and I failed my kids. It like feeds into this negative feedback spiral. And like, that's not true. None of it's true. Like it's hard to remember. I get that when things are bad, when shit has hit the fan and you feel like it's your fault, it is hard to remember. Like nothing is ever 100% one person's fault. There are always so many factors. You don't suck and you haven't failed your kids. It's okay. We've got you. We're here. You've got it. We've
Yeah.
got you. It's going to be okay.
Well, and the hard part is it's depending upon who you're surrounded by too, because sometimes that "Well, I suck and I failed my kids" is not just internalized thoughts, but sometimes you're getting that from family, school districts, your pediatrician, or even your partner. And then it's even harder because you're like already probably feeling a little bit of that niggling in your tummy. And then you're like, oh, do I really suck? So you
Mhm.
need a positive community all the time, but especially when things are rough, you really need a handful of people that are going to circle around you and tell you that you're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You're not failing. Offer to help when they can. Community is essential. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. That is so true. Okay. So, first, we're going to talk. Well, okay. So, first of all, again, we want to reassure you that your kids are learning, even if your days don't look like they typically do. So, remember, we both kind of mentioned it when we were talking about when it's happened in our own world, but that idea, like learning happens in lots of different ways. Learning to identify when you need to take time for self care. That is a huge skill that so many adults do not have anymore. And just teaching your kids, right? So much about teaching our kids is about modeling things. And yeah, sometimes we don't do the best at that because look, we're human and we're human, right? But if you can model this, taking a step back, doing self-care, taking a mental health day, a mental health week, whatever that looks like, it could be letting them know that you've decided that you need to find a therapist or a family therapist and sharing that as a journey, like any of these kinds of things that you're going through, obviously age appropriate and all of that sort of thing, but these are life skills. If it's something that you're doing in your life to get through this stage, the chances that your kids will have to deal with something like that at some point in their life, show them how to do it. Show them how you work through it. There's nothing wrong with teaching that. It's helpful. You don't
Hmm.
expect them to be able to change a tire on the car without anyone ever walking them through it. Don't expect them to understand how to handle a crisis in life without anyone walking them through it.
Hmm.
In the midst of this, you're learning other things like caregiving, grieving, how to adapt, sometimes just how to survive. So much of life is just about deciding that you're going to survive this thing and you muddle through until you're on the other side of it. And there's a lot to be said for teaching kids how to do that.
Yeah, we've had survival celebrations, and it's a misnomer. We've never been on the brink of not surviving in reality in my household. But, after an intense week, especially anybody who's ever moved, right? There's that list of like life stressors, right? And
Mhm.
it's like marriage, divorce, new job, death. Like there's a list of the 7 highest stressors for adults or whatever. Like moving is no joke. And so, yeah, I mean, sometimes you just get to the point where you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get all this done by Friday, or I don't know how I'm going to, your stress just mounts to a point that you're ready to explode. Right. And we've totally just been like, let's go get pizza and ice cream, and just sat there like limp noodles and been like, how did we get through this week? And yeah, I mean, just acknowledging it and knowing it, and just kind of then being like, okay, let's start to rebuild after this thing that we've just experienced. So it's huge to kind of have those moments and push the reset button and very slowly start to come back to reality, or come back to some semblance of what life used to look like, or building a new normal for yourselves. It's hard.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And kids absorb more than we realize. But
Oh
in
yeah.
these moments, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a chance for them to firsthand learn about and practice empathy, emotional intelligence, resilience. It's kind of one of those things I struggle with it as a chronically ill person, as a disabled person. One thing that I've noticed is that my kiddo recently has become really good at being able to tell when I can't keep up with a group. So we'll go on a walking tour, or it might just be our small family, and we're out doing things, and I kind of fall further and further behind. And he's the first one to notice. And then he falls back, and he usually puts his hand kind of on my lower back and rubs it a little and asks if there's anything he can do. And sometimes he carries my cane for me because I have this cane with a seat on it, and he'll be like, do you need this? Do you want this now? Is it helpful? And, or sometimes, like it's heavy and it's slowing me down because I have neuropathy problems with my hands. And so he'll offer to carry it for me instead, if that's helpful at that time. And, you know, on the one hand, I don't want him burdened in his life with this, always having to look out for his mom or take care of his mom. And so I try to make sure that that's not happening. But on the other side of things, I do want a small human that's growing up into an adult who realizes the people around him need some help, or understands that the world is built at a really ableist level and can take a step back and be like, you know, I don't think this is cool. Like, not everyone could do this, or we're not being as inclusive as we might want to be. And he wouldn't necessarily just have that, right? Like, that's a skill that you learn the vast majority of the time because you were in a situation where you cared about someone that caused you to notice those things.
Yeah, it's so true. It's hugely important. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, you see that like with multi-generational homes and stuff like that. I mean, we had a neighbor when we lived in Florida whose mom, I don't know if she had dementia or Alzheimer's, but it was something in that realm. And she needed to be watched. She couldn't be left unattended. And her kids grew up in that home, and her kids are so grateful to have their grandma living with them, even though she's not the grandma that they maybe had when they were younger. But yeah, they're all contributing to this situation in the ways that they can, but they're learning a ton from it as well. So it's a balance. It absolutely is. And it's really not that far-fetched of an idea. I mean, this is how kids' lives have been for centuries, with
Yeah.
multi-generational households and, chipping in and caring and being a part of household activities and things like that, and being responsible for things maybe that kids today aren't. So it's not really that novel of an idea. I mean, we've talked before about that book that we read, How to Raise an Adult, I think it was called, and talked about the fact that parents now remove every obstacle from their kids' lives in order for them to just focus on school, 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 so they can go to college, 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 and then get an amazing job, right? And it's like, but that's not how life ever was before. And so these obstacles that we're talking about, these have been a part of people's lives before that. And spoiler alert, the lady who wrote the book wasn't like, this is an amazing thing that your kids should never face a life obstacle. It's not how the book went. For them to have a time frame where they've taken off because they're grieving a grandparent or a family pet, whatever. I mean, it's okay. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to take those times. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, so we have plenty more to talk about, but at the beginning of the episode, we told you that we've been busy, 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 and it is so true. We have been building online courses. So if you are a person who is new to homeschooling, brand new or relatively new, and you're kind of cobbling together information between podcasts and books and influencers online and local Facebook groups and national, larger scale Facebook groups and stuff like that, it can be a little challenging, especially because sometimes they contradict one another and then they open up more questions than you started with and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So we have built, to start with, 3 classes. We've built a Homeschool 101 that is literally a 5-day boot camp to take all of the panic and stress out of how to start homeschooling. It is, here's what to do. Here's how to know what your state laws are. Here's how to know what kind of homeschool approach might be a good fit for your family. And so, so, so much more. So we've got that. It's concise. There's a workbook that comes with it where you can do all sorts of activities to really fine tune your goals and your approach and your direction going forward. Then we've built 2 classes that come after that. One is if you are homeschooling kiddos ages 6 and younger, and it is all about age-appropriate preschool and kindergarten activities and what is physiologically appropriate, what is developmentally appropriate, what your days might look like, what sort of approach you might take, all of that good kind of stuff. Social emotional learning. I mean, it's full. Like we were working on something the other day and I go, I know we built this class and we're a little bit partial, but this is like a really good class. It really is.
Yeah.
Then if you've been listening to the podcast, I know pretty much nothing about curriculum, but Amanda is like the queen bee of curriculum. So she's got a class that she built as well that I'm super pumped about.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's it. I love curriculum. I don't know if I'm the queen bee, but I do love curriculum and I'm happy to help people with it. So yeah, we went ahead. Everyone is always worried about curriculum because it's so overwhelming if you're choosing to go that route. So we've just got this course. It's going to start with general things to keep in mind no matter what you're doing and what stage you're at. And then going to have a section on both elementary or the younger kiddos, and then course selection and picking things for the older, junior high, high school kind of kiddos. Because while the general advice applies to both, it's not necessarily the same, right? What you need for the younger kiddos versus your tweens and teens, it's not going to be the same. And so we just want to really focus on that. And again, it's going to have a workbook that comes with it. It'll have some suggestions for like, if you like this kind of curriculum, start by looking into these things. If you're looking for specific, not whitewashed history, start by looking into these things. Here are some other resources that are a good place to begin looking if you're looking for X, Y, or Z. So I think a lot of it is stuff that we've talked about here or there, but let's be real. We don't all take comprehensive notes as we listen to 100+ hours of podcasts. So this is one of those like all in one place, right? Handy and easy. And it comes with a workbook that's in black and white, so it doesn't cost a fortune of your colored ink to print it out and all that good jazz. Like hopefully it will be one of those things that like just actually really helps so much, right? Because that's the goal. Like we want life to be a little bit easier and a little bit smoother on the regular.
Yeah, absolutely. So more info coming on those. We should have them launched in the next couple of weeks. We have just putting some finishing touches on some of the website stuff. And the two of us can talk about homeschooling curriculum. We can build classes like nobody's business. The website thing, woof, that's the... So we're just getting that part all sorted out and getting it tested and all that, but it's coming soon. So stay tuned for some announcements. We've got some amazing stuff coming up. So we're super excited to share it with you.
Well, yeah. And I mean, if you're excited to jump on it, I would guess that by the time this episode goes live, within a day or two, at least the first like 101 boot camp will probably be live. We're trying to get them all out and up and working together before we start doing like real advertisement and stuff. But if you're really anxious, you should probably be able to find it, and it'll be, I don't know if you could. Probably it'll come up in just a Google, but you can usually find these things from our website and all of that kind of jazz as well. So, yeah.
Well, I think pop over to Patreon and follow us there. There's a free level of following. So if you're not ready to join Patreon or anything like that, that's fine. But you can come over and just follow us for free. It's Homeschool Moms Unfiltered on Patreon. And we make announcements on the general page that goes out to anybody who's following us. So if you're keen to know when it's live, trust me, we'll let you know over there when it's live. So come follow us. And Amanda puts out a newsletter and all sorts of stuff. So it's just a good place to hang out anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great place to come join so that you know when it's available. All right. So with that said and talked about and all of that jazz, let's keep going. All right. Here's the thing. I'm bad about this myself, right? I don't usually take big breaks. Even when I am almost bedridden for 2 months, I don't usually take a big break. But it is okay to take a break. There's nothing in homeschooling that says you absolutely have to school 9 months from September to May, or August to May, whatever it looks like in your local school district. And it has to be Monday through Friday, and it has to be this many. Like, that's not how it works. It's okay to take a break. And a break can look like a lot of different things that, again, are still educational. Like Meagan said, for them especially, they already do unschool as life. You can look at doing that for a little while. And that might mean, when you're bedridden or you just don't have the motivation, you watch an interesting documentary. It is not hard to Google interesting documentaries, best documentaries of 2025, or whatever, and just keep working your way back through. And there's so much out there that's available. You can listen to.
They could just send us a message too, because I've literally watched every single one that's on Netflix. Like sometimes I go through, I'm like, watched it. Whenever we go to a new country, the Netflix, like it changes up because of licensing in different countries and whatever. And that's like the first thing I do. I'm like, oh, what documentaries haven't I watched in this new country? Because I really watched all of them. So send a message. I'll send you a comprehensive list.
You crack me up, because I was just thinking, you know what? I haven't not turned on the TV for 2 weeks, and it has been so nice. It has felt so good to not watch any TV for that.
See, I can't focus without the TV on though, like something, right? Something in the background. Because I even sent you, I was waiting for it. They released that one the other day on Netflix about the Grenfell Tower fire. And Amanda's dad works in fire world. Like that's his career. And so I was like, your dad might appreciate this documentary. It just came out and I watched it. Which, if you're looking for a lesson on unchecked corporate greed for your kids, 100%. This is why, side note, I have to. The whole thing about like regulations in government and how like there's like one party that loves deregulation, right? It's like you see what happens at the time that the decisions were made that caused this tragic fire where 72 or 77 people died. There was a guy in charge in that area who had a rule that if you were going to create a new regulation, you had to get rid of a regulation. So it was like a 1 in, 1 out policy. And then at one point he went into a 1 in, 2 out policy where for every regulation you created, you had to get rid of 2. And they basically ended up wrapping this 23-story apartment building in like lighter fluid material as a result, because they got rid of all of these regulations. So fascinating documentary, must watch. Anyhow, I digress.
Yeah, but I mean, it's those kinds of things, right? Or like audiobooks or podcasts that you can listen together. Or even if you don't have it in you, like I know for me, when I'm having one of my big flares, I have a really hard time listening to those kind of things. In general, it's not easy, but it's especially hard then. But my kiddo can listen to them and then, I'll just touch base with him and it gives us something to talk about when all I can really do is lay in bed, like, oh, hey, what did you think of that podcast? I might read the show notes or the little summary or something, and then we can have a discussion about it. Journaling might work. It's sure not going to work in my house. I'm going to have much better luck convincing my kid to have a conversation with me. But I know that in some households, it's going to be easier to encourage them to journal instead of chat with you. And that thing too of just being together, relationships, bonding, it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, we've talked about it before, but it bears repeating because when you're in this spiral of like, I suck and I'm failing and I can't do this anymore, cooking, budgeting, grief rituals, packing, whatever it is that's associated with the shit that's going on in your life right now, there is learning in there. We promise you there is learning in there. I mean, how many posts do we see on social media where they talk about the fact that schools don't teach kids the life skills that they need? Like they don't learn how to do taxes, they don't learn how to change the oil in their car, they don't learn how to do all these things. And the root of those posts is that kids are not getting actionable life skills in school most often. These are those life skills. These are them. So it's okay. They need those life skills. People whose kids are in public schools are wishing their kids had that. They're not wishing that your grandmother died, but they're wishing that the kids had the skills that go along with, I mean, whoever's cleared out an estate, right? The legal paperwork, the financial, the cleaning out of the house, all that kind of stuff. Holy cow, that is a lesson. And it's trial by fire. You learn it by doing it and during extreme periods of grief. Like that is not
Yeah.
easy. So walking through that and allowing your kids to see that and be a part of that, it's okay.
Yeah. And to learn that you come out on the other side of it. Right.
Yeah.
That is one of those things. I just don't think you can emphasize that enough, whether it's a loss and you're on the other side, it's just the funeral, the visitation and that kind of stuff, and learning how to deal with that and handle that. Or it's actually dealing with all of the estate and that sort of stuff. It's also overwhelming. It's full of emotion. And to actually experience that as a child with the mentorship and the love and support of the adult in their life, and to learn that no matter how bad it is, you do come out on the other side of it. Like that's a life skill that we should be making
Mhm.
a point to teach every single kid. And so many of the kids, especially in a brick and mortar school situation, are not getting that level of education.
Yeah. They're lucky to get a day off for a funeral and then it's like right back to work. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Hmm.
Okay, so another thing that it can be, kind of during this break is it can be a deschooling period. We talk a lot about the importance of deschooling before you dive into homeschooling, but let's be real, a lot of people don't actually take the time. They don't do it. And if you didn't, this time, this like chaos and what the hell is happening time, it's a good time to just do the deschooling. Go listen to the episode. If you're really confused, you can you can do one of our classes. Our course about Homeschooling 101 has a whole thing on deschooling and activities and all of that, right? But you can take this time to deschool, especially for the parent. We talk a lot about, it's important for parents to deschool almost as much, if not more, a lot of times than the kids. It doesn't have to also be like strictly deschooling. I think that it's also a great time to tweak what is working well and what isn't working well. So if you're in a situation where you're like, you know what, I think that this history curriculum or this science curriculum just really isn't working anymore. It doesn't seem like we're enjoying it as much as we used to. And I think that we should go ahead and try something else. But in the meantime, why don't you go through the rest of the curriculum and pick out whatever you find in there that's interesting and just do it? And then we'll find something new. So they might be watching some random fun videos, especially if it's a science curriculum and there's some videos in there that they actually really wanted to watch. They want to watch them blow something up or make elephant toothpaste again. Like this is the time to just go watch those. Don't worry about the worksheets that go along with it or the learning objectives or any of that. Maybe it's a ELA curriculum and there's a book in there that they had been actually really wanting to read. And so that was why you picked it. But the rest of the curriculum is a dud. So they take the time to read the book and maybe they read some of the stuff that went along with the book because they're interested in that specific piece. Perfect. Do that. Once things have settled down and you're ready to get back into your normal rhythm, look for your new curriculum and see how it goes. So, yeah, I think, you know, you're getting the idea, hopefully. There are some things you can do. Sometimes you need to just focus on the bare minimum of things. So, in that case, you might say, hey, can you watch a video and let me know what you thought of it? Can you watch this documentary? Maybe you're just going to focus on reading for 15 minutes a day. Maybe you decide you're not in a place to be able to help with math. You can't help answer questions or solve new things. So you're going to do some revision on Khan Academy. You're like, you know what? Let's go back and make sure we're solid on whatever we did last year, right?
Our life, our life doesn't have to be in turmoil for me to not be able to help with math. Just anyway.
Yeah, and if your kiddo isn't in turmoil, maybe whatever is happening, it's something like in my world where I'm the one that can't do it, but my kiddo is raring to go with tons of activity and energy, you know, time to look for a new book club. Is there a book that they've been interested in? Maybe an outschool book club or some kind of an online chess thing. Maybe you just sign up for Chess Kids and you're like, yo, have fun, become a chess master. It doesn't have to be big and huge. Those are still good skills and they still teach plenty.
Yeah. And there's other things you can do. You can outsource stuff that typically you didn't outsource. There's tons of online stuff. We've talked about it in other videos. You can always reach out if you need support and you need guidance. There's outschool classes, there's educational games. You can certainly outsource a bit. We talked earlier about not loving all-in-one online solutions for the bulk of your child's education. But both of us are using online resources as a mix with other stuff. So absolutely, if you're like, okay, I will be able to sleep as long as my kids do ELA and math. Like that's it, right? Okay, great. Like Amanda said, put them in a book club on Outschool for ELA and find a math group. There's fun math too, right? Like I was looking at a class the other day that was like competition math prep. Like there's all kinds of stuff that you can sign your kids up for online. So sign them up for those two things and be like, those two are covered. Now, if they pick up science by watching endless YouTube videos and reading books from the library, I'll be content because I know ELA and math are at least covered during this time of turmoil. It's okay. It's all good. Yeah. So maybe sign them up for some extra co-ops that they're not normally doing, especially if you have a tight-knit community where maybe somebody will be like, I can drive your kids to the nature thing on Tuesdays. You want me to take your kids to the nature thing on Tuesdays? Yes, absolutely. Take my kids to the nature thing on Tuesdays and give yourself a break. It's okay. But I think a huge part of that, any of those steps come with letting go of the guilt and perfectionism of like, if I'm not 100%, I suck and I failed. And that's a you journey, right? That has to be part of the process because we can't always give 100%. You just can't. Taking a pause is better than completely burning out. It just is.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Now, I do want to make a quick note and say if you are like me and you struggle with the idea of unschooling life as life, or you're like me and you know that this is going to happen once or twice a year and you're going to have to find a way to have these big chunks of homeschool life that you just can't do the way you want, it's okay to flex a bit. And it can be something like a loop schedule, which is this idea where you say, okay, I want you to do ELA, science, math review, history, and you put the list and your kid works through it, but it's not like you have to do each of these things every day. These are the things I want you to do. And I want you to work through them. And once you've gotten through all of them, even if it takes you 2 or 3 days to get through all of them, start again at the top and run through all of those. It's a good way to help. And it's the same idea as like maybe a weekly checklist as well, where you're like, these are the things I need you to cover, but I can't be on top of you to make sure it gets done. Please just work your way through it. I'll check in when I can. And that might be every 2 or 3 days. It might be at the end of the week.
Mhm.
It's okay. Like if you can't go completely, I trust that life is life, and that's like, we get it. I'm that anal as well. It's one of the, it's okay. The last thing that I really want to remind you is that thing of like, when in doubt, it is helpful to remind yourself that a traditional school classroom is not a well-oiled machine 180 days of the year. They have all kinds of things going on, everything from teacher turnover and teacher illness, causing huge disruptions to learning. I mean, I don't know how many times you hear about a sub that's like, oh, there for a month or two, right? And they're just not prepared. And the kids do like almost nothing for the 2 months that the sub is there.
How
Like,
about you show up for teacher meet and greet and they're pregnant? And like, listen, they're humans. They're allowed to have babies whenever they damn well please. I totally get that. But your kid is so screwed for that year. It's bad. It's going to be really bad.
yeah, well, and especially these days, right? Because there's such a shortage of teachers.
Yeah.
There's such a shortage of qualified subs. I have some friends who are working as subs, and they're regularly showing up, and there's no plans for them. There's nothing they can easily pick up. It's like, just put on this movie. And they're like, but I've shown that movie like 8 times in this school alone. I'm certain the kids have seen it. You've got standardized testing days, and let's be real, most of the time it's like a whole week, and a lot of times it's like 2 or 3 weeks back to back for standardized testing, and it throws everything off. You have weather delays and closures, whether it's hot weather, whether it's snow, whether it's ice, whether it's too cold. Then you've got drills, fire drills, and lockdowns, and just all of these things that are happening. The kids are in constant transition. They're being disrupted. It is not a smooth, well-oiled machine. Okay. And granted, these things are not happening every day, but they are happening. And that's not even taking into consideration all of the assemblies that they have, and the spirit days, and the field days, and the field trips, and all of that. I mean, we've talked about it before, like the last month and a half of school, like
They do nothing.
yeah, almost no learning happens. So it's okay. It's not that different. And on top of that, there is absolutely nothing that says you have to run your school on a traditional calendar. There are definitely 100% schools and even countries that run year-round schedules or modified year-round schedules. And that means that you're taking what you would normally think of, I have to finish this all in 9 months, and you get to spread that out throughout the year, however you need or want. This is homeschooling anyway, but if thinking about it during a crazy time in your life helps ease your anxiety or worries, just think of it that way. You know what? Okay, well, we're homeschooling year round this year. And it'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. It is going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Your kids are going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Take a breath. Adding stress of like, I'm failing at homeschooling is not helping whatever the underlying turmoil is that's there. It's not adding anything to it. So it's okay. We promise. Okay. So end of episode mantra. When life gets messy, your homeschool doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. Give yourself permission to pause, pivot, and show up with love. That's more than enough.
Yeah,
So true.
it is, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. You've got this. Happy homeschooling.
Yeah. Have a great one.